And welcome back. We are going to go ahead and take a deeper look at orders of operations. Specifically, let's look at the mathematical side of things because it is very important to know how these different things work, especially when we get parentheses involved, as how to Java's actually go ahead and start to evaluate this. We did see a little bit of this when we started looking at addition, subtraction, multiplication, but what if we have something that's a lot more complex? How does Java handle that? Well, just as a quick recall, when we start talking about precedence, the thing that you have to remember is that Java utilizes precedence to follow the orders of operation. Therefore, operations are completed left to right, with high precedence given to parentheses, then multiplication, division, and finally addition, subtraction. Remember, we did talk a little bit before about some other operations, such as modulo, that have their own precedence, or even things like increment or decrement. But again, we're not going to worry about it for the focus of this lesson. So this is kind of a quick lesson here today. The thing that we have to understand with precedence, though, is how does Java evaluate that? How does it use it? Well, the easiest way to kind of think about it and really kind of wrap our mind around it, if you aren't familiar with orders of operations and using PEMDAS or anything like that, we need to fully parenthesize the expression. So let's pop on over Eclipse and take a look at how this works. All right, so here I went ahead and created a long mathematical equation here, and I'm just going to print this out just so we can go ahead and see the answer. We're getting a -1. All right, so how do we get that -1? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this here, double answer, and let's just go ahead and put this in here a few times because we're going to go ahead and just parenthesize this. All right, so if we look at this, we already have a couple parentheses in here. So we have a parenthesis around this set right here. So it's doing the 2 divided by 2 first. And then we have this 14 plus 6. This is inside that next set of parentheses, which means in order for me to parenthesize this, I actually need to come in and add another set of parentheses around this. And so now this is saying do this set of operations next. All right. And then the next thing it would have to do is it would have to move to that parenthesis there. So this parenthesis, of course, is going to carry down a line. So let's just go ahead and just add that one in. And we don't need to add another parenthesis here because you can see we already have a parenthesis here. So it's actually already. So what's the next thing that we need to do? Well, we need to go ahead and look at our next set of operations here. So I have a multiplication, I have a division, and I have a subtraction and an addition. Well, remember, multiplication and division are going to take higher precedence. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just parenthesize these here. And I'm just going to do it here on this line here. So let's just go ahead. We're going to replace this line here so that we have a nice fresh line. And we are going to add parentheses around these expressions here. All right. Now, of course, if we look at this, the next thing it's going to want to do is take a look at this equation and say, okay, well, we have these in parentheses now. What do we do next? Well, next we're going to have to now add, right? So we're going to move left to right. So we would first add this value here with this value here. And so on and so forth. And so if we go again, we can then say, okay, next up is this subtraction. So it's going to be all this value here. And then minus all of this value here. And you can start seeing how this gets to be very, very unwieldy with parentheses. And you don't have to go ahead and do this actually with your work. I just want to give a kind of visual diagram of how Java is actually taking this into different pieces here. And so you can see how Java is actually doing this. So we have all these different parentheses, and so it's always going to kind of evaluate things with these nested parentheses first, and then of course always work left to right. And no matter what you do, you should still get the same answer, -1, because again, what happens is Java looks at this and evaluates the same as if we had done it this way. So just a kind of different way for it to kind of come in here and do this. Now, if we do this with some variables, so let's just quickly create some int variables here. So like num1, and I'm going to set that equal to 1, num2, and that's equal to 2, and num3, and set that equal to 3. All right, and then let's just do a quick system out of print line of it. And we're going to do num1 plus num2 times num3. All right, now if we just have this very simple operation here, we should be able to say, okay, well, num2 times num3, that's 2 times 3, so 6 plus 1 should give me 7. Boom, that's what we got. Now, what if we start putting parentheses in here? How does that change it? Well, if I put a parentheses in here, and do something like this, num1 plus num2 times num3, it means it's now going to add these two first. So it'll be 1 plus 2 times 3, which means we should get 6, or 9, excuse me. So we get 3 times 3. And so now that we have that, boom. What's if we wanted to change this though? What's if we wanted to instead make this into a num3 divided by num2? How is that going to change our answer? Well, if we do that, we now get 4, because now it's still going to go ahead and do this operation first, which of course, if you remember, this was 9. Now it's going to do 9 divided by 2, and we get 4. Technically, we would know this would be 4.5. However, because we are using integers here, remember that decimal is dropped right off here, and so we just end up with 4. All right, so that should give us a nice, some examples of how this works. Like I said, this might be a little confusing. If this is a little too much for you, you can just kind of ignore that piece. As long as you understand how orders of operations work, that should be a good foundation for you before we get ready to move into the next lesson.